Welcome to another edition of Inside. I'm Shiharanis. Today we have a great personality here with us. She is very controversial in social media, and people sometimes hate her for her stance. Uh, we have the editor in chief of the Daily Mirror, one of Sri Lanka's top English daily, Jamila Husain. Welcome to the show, Jamila.
Thank you, Shehar. Thanks.
Jamila, you are more popular for your controversies, especially in Twitter. And sometimes your tweets, people actually hate you because the stance you take. Let's start with the background. How did you choose journalism and how did you come to this position? Tell us about you first, Jamila.
Okay, so I think the introduction has been quite spot on, perfect by you. So Shihar, it's been like 21 years now since I'm in journalism. I got in soon after college. I never wanted to get into journalism. My goal and aim was politics. I wanted to see myself contesting and, working for the country, working for the people. Because back in school also, I was very active when it came to all social services. So when I conveyed this to my parents one day, I said that I want to get into political science and I want to get into politics. Well, being a father, my dad said no. He said, politics is not for you. Try to see if you can choose another career. So I said, no, it's in my blood. So then he said, okay, I'll put you or I'll allow you to get into something which is closest to politics, and that's journalism. So at that time, I remember I had sent in an application to Lasantha, Wickrematunge, who was the editor of the Sunday Leader. And in my letter, which I sent to Lasantha, I had said that no matter what happens, please make me a political writer. And then he immediately called me for an interview and he asked me just two questions. He said, will you be dedicated to your career? Because journalism comes with a lot of sacrifices. It'll be something where you will have to say the truth against the lies. So you'll have to choose the correct path. I said, you have me. So he immediately hired me, like within 10 minutes I was hired. And that's how my entire journey started. I still love politics, but I think now I love journalism much better. Yeah.
Will you be contesting in future?
You won't believe. But within the past 3 years, I have been asked this a lot by various politicians, even some diplomats in Colombo, but absolutely not. Because the thing is, my path is very clear. I want to keep writing and I want to keep writing the truth for the audience, whether some people like it or not,
In your social media platform, especially on the Twitter or X now, Jamila, you have been very controversial. You have taken a stance against the tide, right?
Yes.
I remember when everybody hate Rajapaksas, you were pro Rajapaksa and writing about them. And you at one point, I think you were the only source Rajapaksas were talking at a point, right? Why do you want to be like that?
Okay, so there is a small correction here. I'm not a pro Rajapaksa. In fact,
You were seen.
Yeah, in fact, I'm really glad that you asked me this question. See, I'm not pro anybody. Right now, I'm branded as pro Rajapaksa, pro Ranil, pro Sirisena. And now even very recently, because of my editorials, people say I'm pro AKD as well. Why do you always have to brand somebody as pro this and pro that? You see, during the Aragalia time, I think that's what you're mainly referring to, that is during the Aragalia. We had a sitting prime minister, and that's Mahinda Rajapaksa. We had a president that was Gotabaya Rajapaksa. We had a minister who was Nama Rajapaksa. So they were all from the Rajapaksa family. And I was a journalist back then. I was not the editor-in-chief of Daily Mirror. So my role was to report. So usually for me, my journalism is, Shihar, when people are reporting about a certain group and they're blaming another group, I usually go to that other group to get their side of the story. Because what is journalism? It doesn't mean that you only cover one side of the story. Journalism means covering both sides of the story. I remember, I'll tell you an example. During the heights of the Aragalia, when Mahinda Rajapaksa was the sitting prime minister, I had in fact approached them for an interview. Because while the crowds were going to Galle Face and interviewing the protesters, who was interviewing the sitting prime minister and the sitting president, wanting to know what is going on in their minds. And fortunately, I got that interview. And I went and interviewed Mahinda Rajapaksa. And you won't believe, one of my questions which I asked Mahinda at that time was, Mr. Prime Minister, you're sitting here with me at Temple Trees, but we can hear the protesters outside demanding for your resignation. What do you have to say? I mean, he being Mahinda Rajapaksa, gave me a splendid reply. He said, this is the democracy, what you guys want. You know, so my journalism doesn't mean that I have to agree to the tide. Where in the journalism rule does it say that? You know, I always want to give all sides of the story. And unfortunately, there are certain groups which are operating on social media who know what I am doing, but who don't like what I'm doing. And then they brand me as pro-Rajapaksa and pro-Sirisena and pro-Wickrematunge and pro-AKD. You know, this is my journalism. I'm not pro anybody, but of course I have my preferences. I find Mahinda Rajapaksa to be a very fantastic leader during his time. He brought in the investments, etc. Then I saw Ranil for the positives that he brought. I saw Maitripala as for the positives he brought, and now I see AKD as a very good leader as well. So that doesn't make me pro, because when it comes to exposing their wrongdoings, I have very well done it.
Let's come to the political analysis, Jamila. Now, we have a government with more than 2/3 majority in the parliament, and they were chosen after the crisis, after the 2 years after the crisis, and they were handed over somewhat an economy somewhat in a good shape.
Yeah.
Under this government, how do you see things compared to previous governments? We have been in journalism for the last 21 years, means like from 2004, during the war, after the war, during the economic boom, and during the Yahapalne, you would have been covering all these things. How do you see now? Have things changed?
Like you correctly said, when this government was handed over the country, economically, we were not fully collapsed. Because to be very honest with you, after the Aragal, when we were bankrupt, when we did not even have our basics, we had Ranil Wickrematunge, who was sworn in as the president by parliament. And to a great extent, they struck a deal with the IMF, and then things started going a bit smoothly. But that doesn't mean that this government was given a very well-advanced or a well-to-do country. They came with a lot of baggages. It's been over a year now since President Dissanayake has been in government. One thing I want to say is President Dissanayaka's campaign was rock solid compared to the other parties. He pledged anything and everything. And people actually liked what he said. They liked the change he was going to bring, especially when he spoke about corruption. Because if you and I agree, Shihar, every past government we have had has come with their own corruption tags. And it somehow just grew and grew. So much so that people got really fed up. Because you would have ministers, facing allegations of wrongdoing, and nobody was ever charged. So when President Dissanayake came into power, people had a lot of hope. But now it's been a little over a year, and we feel, at least I feel, that he's been very slow in fulfilling these pledges, especially where his economic pledges also were concerned. For example, during the campaign time, he said, I will renegotiate with IMF. But he was not able to do it. And he came back and he had to agree to the terms and conditions of the IMF. Then, for example, even the FDIs, he said, as soon as I come, I'll bring in the foreign direct investments. But even now, we see that there is no major FDI which has come in. And the largest FDI, what they had signed with Sinopec, that is also still very much unsure. As of now, we do know there's a delegation coming next month. But till it doesn't happen, we are not confirmed whether it will happen. We've also been seeing a few FDIs pull out of the country, which Daily Mirror reported 2 days ago. That
Amber.
Exactly, Amber pulled out. And in their letter to the BOI, they said that they could not work with the state authorities. So I don't see much of a change that has happened. But where